Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. Police officers don't just allow a white mob to destroy the wealthiest black community in America. They call in air support to drop bombs. Actual bombs on American citizens.
Bro, why? 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 For what? But then, when are you gonna take accountability? When are you gonna start taking accountability, black people? How long you gonna blame people for what other people did? All we did was fucking bomb your city. The 7 levels of racist. Oh, video by Black Stories Untold. All right, let's go ahead and check this out, man. I didn't realize they had 7 whole levels.
Every level of racist in America explained.
Okay, so
Level 1, the Karen.
Karen.
Let's start with everyone's favorite, the accidental racist.
Ew, she is not a customer. She is just some bum that wandered in off the street.
The Karen. The person who swears they're not racist while saying the most racist stuff imaginable.
No.
New York, 2020. Amy Cooper sees a black man bird watching. Bird watching.
I remember
And
this
somehow
story.
her brain goes straight to 911. There's an African-American man threatening my life, she says, voice trembling like she's being chased by a serial killer.
That's insane,
instead
dude.
of someone watching birds. These
Yeah,
are
that's programming and brainwashing at its finest.
your I have black friends people. They'll compliment your English like it's shocking you can speak.
Right.
They'll touch your hair without asking. They'll tell you you're not like other black people and think that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, 2018. 2 black men commit the heinous crime of existing in a Starbucks without buying
I
coffee.
remember this, man. Oh, God.
The manager calls the cops.
Bro, could you imagine 2 white dudes, or even worse, 2 white women just sitting in a Starbucks cafe? I think one of them purchased a coffee even, and they get arrested, bro. Arrested.
They get arrested for waiting. For waiting.
Wow.
Level 1 racists don't burn crosses.
Oh, that's right. I don't think they got a chance to buy the coffee yet. They were waiting for their friend to show up. Lord have mercy.
Make your everyday life exhausting. 68% of workers deal with microaggressions regularly. But these people swear it's all misunderstandings.
Sure.
They're not trying to be racist. They're just really bad at not being racist. Parents literally have to teach kindergartners how to survive encounters with level 1 racists. But sure, it's just awkwardness, right? Here's the thing about accidental racists. They're everywhere, but their symptoms are something way more organized. Level 2, the Gatekeeper.
Ooh.
Level 2 doesn't shout slurs. They smile politely and say, unfortunately, that position has been filled, while your resume is still warm from the printer. These are your HR managers, loan officers, real estate agents, and school administrators. They don't hate black people.
Right.
They just happen to find reasons why black people don't quite fit.
Yeah.
Chicago, 1930s. Government officials literally drew red lines around black neighborhoods like they were radioactive zones. Banks couldn't lend there. Too risky, they said. Cool. Totally normal behavior from professionals. Long Island, 2019. Real estate agents get caught on hidden camera. They show white couples the dream home and tell black couples with identical finances that everything's already pending. Magic. It's almost like nothing changed except the paperwork got prettier. Today's gatekeepers call it culture fit in hiring. They point to credit scores without mentioning how those scores got tanked by discriminatory lending. Black home ownership sits at 46.4% compared to 75.8% for white families. Gee,
Yeah.
wonder how that happened.
Right.
Must be personal choice, right? School district administrators draw enrollment boundaries.
Yeah, of
like
course. It had nothing to do with the U.S. government and the Homestead Act giving away hundreds, if not thousands, actually, thousands of acres of American land away to white families practically for free. Look into it. The Homestead Act.
Wow.
It's not about race, it's about property values. Yeah. And how exactly do you think those property values got that way?
Right.
The gatekeeper is dangerous because they have institutional power and plausible deniability. They're not burning crosses. They're just following company policy that mysteriously always hurts the same people. But gatekeepers? That's child's play.
Right.
Sometimes they don't even bother with individual discrimination. Level 3, the colorblind. Level 3 is where we get really creative. Why write obviously racist laws when you can write colorblind ones that just happen to devastate black communities?
Yeah.
Pure coincidence, obviously. These are your state legislators, federal congresspeople, and policy wonks. They craft laws that sound totally fair on paper, but work like surgical strikes against black communities.
Yeah.
Watch
And this is the rebuttal to whenever people say, oh, we don't have any racist legislation. We don't have anything written into the laws that target anybody based on race or sex or anything of that nature. All we have to do is take a look at the way the laws were written in regards to the penalty for being caught with crack cocaine versus powdered cocaine. Powdered cocaine, of course, was more prevalent in the white communities, and crack cocaine was more popular amongst black users, even though statistically the white population used both more cocaine and more crack. 5 grams of crack cocaine gets you 5 years in prison, but it would take 500 grams of powdered cocaine to get the same sentence, even though chemically they're identical, practically identical.
in D.C., 1986. Congress decides crack, predominantly used in black communities,
There it is.
gets you 100 times the sentence of powder cocaine. Same drug,
Yeah.
different packaging. But hey, the law doesn't mention race, so totally fair, right?
And again, when he says predominantly, he's not saying that black people used more crack than white people or Hispanics. Statistically, the Hispanic and white community used more crack cocaine. It's just that the majority of cocaine, when it was being consumed by the black population in the late 80s and the 90s, it was in the form of crack cocaine. Why? Because it was cheaper and more accessible.
These lawmakers love voter ID requirements. Everyone should have ID. Sure.
Right.
Except ID costs money. DMVs are mysteriously rare in certain neighborhoods, and some folks work 3 jobs without time for bureaucratic field trips. But technically, colorblind.
Now, the voter ID situation is tricky because on one hand, I do believe that it makes perfect logical sense to want to be able to identify the person who's casting the vote. Otherwise, what's stopping a person from voting multiple times, for instance, or voting under somebody else's name? So it makes sense, but something that a lot of conservatives do not want to acknowledge is the fact that it is just harder for a poor person who doesn't have that many resources to get a form of identification. It still costs money to get IDs. And just as how poor areas that are predominantly black are often regarded as food deserts because they do not have the same kind of access to fresh, healthy foods at reasonable prices in supermarkets, and so they oftentimes go towards fast food. And that's not necessarily the only reason why they do that, but it does play a factor. Similarly, things like DMVs are usually less accessible to people who live in these poor black communities. And so when you combine that with the fact that they just have less money and less resources, you can see how it is to the advantage of the white person or just any person who has the money, who has the work flexibility, who has even the transportation, the means of getting there. And then you combine that again with the mindset that a lot of poor people have, which is that the government is not looking out for them anyway and that your vote doesn't matter. And so when you combine all of these factors, you can see how it does disadvantage or it does act as a racist policy. So the solution, of course, is to just make it easier for poor people to obtain identification and obtain them for free, because you need your birth certificate. You got to pay money for that. You oftentimes got to pay money for the various identification that you are trying to apply for, whether that just be a regular state ID or a driver's license. And so, yeah, man, it is true. It's a little more nuanced. It's a little more subtle, but it is true.
Level 4, the enforcer. Level 4 is where your own government decides black people organizing is a national security threat. Not the Klan, not actual terrorists.
Right.
People asking for equal rights. These are FBI agents, police chiefs, prosecutors, and intelligence officials who use the full power of the state to crush black leadership. California and Illinois, 1960s to 70s. FBI agents literally ran a program called COINTELPRO to neutralize black leadership. They didn't just spy, They actively sabotage, imprison, and assassinated civil rights leaders.
Right.
Chicago, December 1969. FBI agents give Chicago police a detailed floor plan of Fred Hampton's apartment. They coordinate a raid.
Yeah, for whatever reason, whenever a large amount of black people get together, and especially if they're organized and are orderly, that seems to make people very nervous.
4 a.m. while he's
Some people very nervous.
sleeping, and he gets shot in the head. 21 years old. His crime? Feeding kids breakfast and teaching community organizing. They bug Martin
Wait, what? No. Hold on, run that one back, bro.
at 4 a.m. while release a detailed floor plan of Fred Hampton's apartment. They coordinate a raid at 4 a.m. while he's sleeping, and he gets shot in the head. 21 years old. His crime? Feeding kids breakfast and teaching community organizing.
Wow.
They bug Martin Luther King Jr.'s hotel rooms, send him anonymous letters telling
Right.
him and the FBI director literally called him the most dangerous Negro in America.
And exactly what was the crime that Martin Luther King committed? What was he doing? Was he running a drug operation, a crime syndicate? What exactly did Martin Luther King ever do to deserve being literally monitored by the FBI? Oh my goodness. Shit, man.
These are federal agents.
But we're just supposed to be like, oh yeah, you know, that's normal.
Think this is ancient history? Federal agents tracked Black Lives Matter organizers' cell phones, created fake social media accounts to monitor activists, and somehow, protesters keep ending up dead in cars and jail cells.
Wow.
But I'm sure it's all totally different now. Level 4 racists have badges, security clearances, and legal authority to destroy lives. They don't just discriminate, they wage war. Of course, when federal agents are too busy to handle things personally, there's always the street-level enforcers. Level 5, the uniform. Level 5 is where the people sworn to protect and serve become the threat, with badges, guns, and legal immunity to do whatever they want. These aren't bad apples, they're products of departments with bad cultures, bad training, and bad incentives. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. Police officers don't just allow a white mob to destroy the wealthiest black community in America, they call in air support to drop bombs. Actual bombs on American citizens.
Bro, why? 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 For what?
Then they
This was 100 years ago, bro. Why?
blame the victims.
But then, when are you gonna take accountability? When are you gonna start taking accountability, black people? How long you gonna blame people for what other people did? All we did was fucking bomb your city. But the wealth gap is completely the fault of what? Black laziness? Right. Okay.
Ferguson, Missouri, 2014. The Department of Justice finds police officers were basically running a legal extortion racket, targeting black residents for traffic tickets to fund the city budget, almost like taxation without representation, but with tasers. New York City, 2000s. Police officers conduct 700,000 stop and frisk encounters per year, 90% on black and Latino men.
Wow.
Hit rate for finding weapons, about 1%.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, if you... It would at least be somewhat justified. It would still be a violation of our constitutional rights to unlawful searches and seizures, right? Unless I'm suspected of committing a crime, you should not have the ability to search my person. But at least if you were finding like 50% or some shit like that, at least you could make that kind of an argument. But it's just like this 1%, man, I need to make some merch around this 1% shit because, again, less than 1% of the entire black population is in prison. About half of that population has ever committed a violent crime or is in prison for committing a violent crime. That's all the evidence you have for violent crimes. You can imagine that there are a ton of other black people committing crimes and not getting caught. You have no evidence for that. So if you want to just default to believing that's true, that's racist, that's white supremacy. But it's 1%. And so I'm not surprised that 90% of the search stop and frisks that were happening in the 2000s in New York yielded a 1% return on investment, let's say, with these unlawful, unconstitutional searches. Wow, figures.
So basically, legal harassment with a 99% failure rate.
Jesus,
but hey,
man.
they had quote.
But what does it do more than just the fucking harassment? it paints a picture. You see, when a white person or somebody else, a Latino and Asian, is walking down the street and they see a man being searched who hasn't committed any crimes and actually doesn't have anything on him, but what that person sees, it paints a picture. Why don't I see more Asians getting searched? Why don't I see more white people getting searched? It must mean that these black people are committing more crimes, when in all reality, 99% of them ain't doing shit. But it paints that, and this is how white supremacy works. This is how you program the entire population to be afraid of black people when they ain't doing nothing, bro.
To meet. These officers pull over black drivers at twice the rate during the day, but the disparity disappears at night when they can't see races clearly. They arrest black kids for the same infractions that get white kids warnings. They patrol black neighborhoods like occupying armies. Level 5 racists have legal authority to use violence while investigating themselves for misconduct. They don't burn crosses. They plant evidence and claim they feared for their lives.
Yeah.
But uniform racism is still retail violence. When America really wants to get things done, we elect the people who write it into law. Level 6, the architect. Level 6 is where the cruelty becomes policy, not rogue cops or individual bigots. Elected officials who make oppression legal, systematic, and generational. These are governors, state legislators, Supreme Court justices, and federal officials who design the infrastructure of inequality. Virginia, 1705. State legislators don't just legalize owning humans. They systematically strip away every possible right. Can't own property. Can't learn to read.
Nigga, what the fuck was that? You can't learn to read, bro.
Can't gather in groups. Can't defend yourself. Can't testify in court. They write a manual for creating a permanent underclass. After slavery ends, these officials create convict leasing. Alabama, Georgia, Texas legislators turn prisons into slavery with extra steps. Black men get arrested for vagrancy, aka existing while poor, and leased to plantations and mines.
Yeah, there's a great book on this, Slavery by Another Name. Go ahead and read it. It's crazy.
North Carolina officials, 1929 to 1974, run forced sterilization programs targeting undesirable populations. Guess who that meant? They sterilize over 7,600 people, mostly black women, without consent.
Man.
State-sponsored medical abuse with a legal framework. Oregon legislators.
But then conservatives want to tell you that America is not a racist country, and it hasn't been a racist country for a while, if it ever was.
1844 to 1926 banned black people from living in the entire state.
1976, he said? Oh my God, to 1974. So fucking, we're talking about literally like 50 years ago.
1926 banned black people from living in the entire state. Not just slavery, straight up apartheid. Whites only carved into the state constitution. The liberal West Coast, everybody.
Nah, I gotta look more into that. So I asked ChatGPT, were black people ever banned from living in Oregon? And the summary is yes. From the 1840s through the late 1800s, Oregon legally banned black people from settling in the state, the entire state, bro. The exclusion was written into the state constitution and reflected a deliberate effort to create a white utopia. Wow.
The liberal West Coast, everybody.
Jeez.
Modern officials build highways straight through black neighborhoods.
Yup.
Like surgical strikes.
Look at this shit, man. Could you imagine living in a house like this? Could you imagine this being your house and it was nothing but just grass and yards and woodlands and then you blink and now there's an entire highway cutting through your home. Now imagine how hard it is for you to study as a young black child when they're literally just cars, accidents, horns, honking, just constantly 24/7, bro, because that's what it is on a highway. You know what I'm saying? And how hard it is to just navigate, how unsafe it is to cross the street. Imagine you're a black kid and you live here and you want to go over here. You got to cross highways to get across the street. This is insane. Show me a single white neighborhood that this has been done to. Here's what ChatGPT said, right? That's a sharp question, but the short answer is yes, with an important difference. Highway projects in the mid-20th century often disrupted many neighborhoods, some white and middle class included, but the targeting was far more systematic and devastating for black communities. Let's break it down. And that shouldn't be surprising. The elites, the people who pull the strings, have been fucking everybody over since forever. It's just that they tend to like to fuck over black people far more. So in summary, and now it goes ahead and dives into various examples, but I like to read the summary where it says, yes, some middle-class white neighborhoods in American history were displaced by highways, but the pattern of deliberate targeting, scale of displacement, and inability to resist was far more concentrated against black communities, making it part of the broader pattern of systemic racism in housing and infrastructure policy. Black neighborhoods were disproportionately chosen even when white alternatives existed. When middle-class white areas resisted through political clout, lawsuits, and lobbying, they often got highways rerouted or canceled. For example, wealthy white areas in Washington, D.C. and San Francisco successfully stopped proposed highways, and black communities usually lacked the political power to block projects, so they bore the brunt. Now, we know the rich elites have been fucking over middle class and poor whites forever, but they still are higher up on the totem pole, right?
Level 6 racists don't just discriminate. They engineer society to make discrimination automatic. They don't wear hoods. They wear robes and sit in marble buildings. But even legal oppression requires paperwork and process. Sometimes people just say screw it and go full terrorist.
Sure.
Level 7. The terrorist. Level 7 is where we stop pretending there are rules. Domestic terrorists who use public violence to keep entire communities in line through sheer fear. These are Klan members, white extremists, white nationalists, and lone wolf shooters who believe in racial holy war. Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. White extremist leaders literally overthrow a legally elected government and exile hundreds of residents.
Wow.
Not a riot. A coordinated coup by businessmen and politicians who decided democracy had gone too far. Rosewood.
Seems like a culture problem, though.
Florida, 1923. Klan members and local vigilantes descend on an entire black town after a white woman claims assault. They burn it to the ground.
Jesus.
In the lives of residents, and survivors scatter into the swamps. The town never recovers. It's erased from maps. East St. Louis, Illinois, 1917. White mobs kill over 100 black residents and burn 300 homes. The North isn't exempt. Racism doesn't respect geography. Between
When have black people ever done any shit like this, man? God damn.
1877 and 1950, lynch mobs end the lives of over 4,000 black Americans. Public spectacles with postcards sold as souvenirs. Families bringing picnic lunches to watch torture. This is the foundation everything else is built on. Charleston Church, 2015. Buffalo Supermarket, 2022. Jacksonville Dollar General, 2023. Lone gunman citing replacement theory, targeting black spaces specifically. Level 7
Replacement theory, by the way, is the most nonsensical, dumb shit I've ever heard in my life. Y'all are literally 70% of the population. Just have more kids.
And call it patriotism. They are the logical conclusion of everything that came before.
Well, actually, that's if you include people who are mixed with Caucasian. Pure white, 60%. Still quite a lot.
The Karen didn't invent racism. She just inherited the infrastructure. Today's results? Every level is operational. Karens in every workplace making daily life exhausting. Gatekeepers in every institution finding reasons to exclude. Policymakers writing colorblind laws that target with precision. Government agents surveilling and suppressing. Police officers enforcing the hierarchy with violence. Architects designing systematic oppression. Terrorists using fear as a weapon.
Jeez,
Median
man.
white family has nearly 10 times the wealth of the median black family.
Yeah.
Black students still disciplined at 3 times the rate. Voting rights under attack in multiple states. Same ladder, different people climbing it. Every type feeds the others. Karens normalize casual racism. Gatekeepers institutionalize it. Policymakers legalize it. Enforcers weaponize it. Uniforms legitimize it. Architects systematize it. Terrorists enforce it with violence. So here's the assignment. Which type of racist runs your area? Drop your state plus the level in the comments We'll pin the worst example.
Man, you know, I don't think too deeply about shit like that. Personally, I believe that some of the greatest victims of white supremacy programming are black people, and that's why I talk about these things. That's why I think it's important that we educate ourselves on these matters so that we can unbrainwash ourselves and unbrainwash other people from the bullshit, the lies, and the propaganda. It's very empowering to understand that the reason why your people are where they are in the social hierarchy has nothing to do with character or effort or initiative, but is majority of it is the result of oppression and racism. And that's just a fact. You can't, it is what it is. If you keep cutting somebody off by the knees, how are they supposed to be able to participate in the race? It's just not, it doesn't make sense. In fact, it's incredibly inspiring and powerful how far black people have come in the West in general, but especially in America, despite this history. Truly a resilient people. And because, as we know, what you resist persists, the more they try to hold us down, the more we elevate. It's just how it works. But you let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. Peace out.